Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. It is a pleasure to be here again outside of this courthouse where once again the U.S. Constitution was defended, where the rule of law was defended, and we reaffirmed what it means to be an American in this country. I want to thank our partners from Northwest Immigrants' Right Project for their outstanding advocacy, for the outstanding men and women of our Civil Rights Division, for helping remind this country that we do not have a king. We have a president who must abide by the laws, and if they want to amend the Constitution, there is a process by which to do that. But as of today, we're back to the status quo that we've had in this country for 150 years, that you are an American if you are born on U.S. soil. So I'm really thrilled with the court's reaffirmance of that today and happy to take your questions.
What's next?
Well, this case will proceed, and now the preliminary injunction that we have is the law of the land. Once again, the United States government cannot take any action to enforce or implement the executive order that was issued by the president, and we will see what next steps the United States tries to take. But for now, the law remains, and we'll be subject to the court's further rulings. For now, the court remains in this court. We'll have to see what the Department of Justice does next.
Can you tell us again why this?
Sorry. We'll wait for the Department of Justice to speak for themselves.
I forgot my question. Oh, I know what.
Can you tell us why?
Can you explain to us again why this preliminary injunction was necessary given the one that was granted in now?
Sure, and the great thing about this case and many cases that we will bring as states, as state sovereigns, we represent the people of the state of Washington. And in this case, we have 3 other states joining us. The case that we brought in Maryland involved different plaintiff parties with different rights and different impacts on them as individual plaintiffs. But it is great in this democracy that we can take on challenges with multiple parties across the state. And so we wanted to make sure that the state of Washington's rights were defended and those of Arizona and Oregon as well, and Illinois. But those cases are all obviously very similar. And the court recognized that having a preliminary injunction in another state did not impact his ability or the necessity of a preliminary injunction here. Well, for now, those cases will proceed in 2 different courts. And we have great colleagues across this country and another coalition of Democratic attorney generals bringing a case in the District of Massachusetts. And those cases will continue to proceed. And that is appropriate when we have big, immense challenges. And what we're facing right now in this country is the Trump administration moving 100 miles an hour in 100 different areas and on a daily basis breaking the law, violating the United States Constitution. And that is, I think, a reinforcement from my perspective why it's so important to have multiple cases being brought across this country to make sure that we are responding with the same urgency that we're seeing to the lawlessness from Washington, D.C. Go ahead. Well, I don't want to speak for them directly, but obviously as the states, we represent the entire state of Washington, and we have particular interest as a state sovereign in bringing that case. But the briefing and the argument today by the Northwest Immigrants' Right Project reflected that there are people at the heart of this case, people whose rights were personally impacted, and they represent those individuals, and those are different rights, obviously related, but different rights than those brought by the states. It's absurd. I mean, that's what it is. And it is consistent with the fact that we have a lawless president who lies on a day-to-day basis. And I don't want to move past that point too quickly. We currently have a president of the United States who lies to the American people with imperpetuity and has a complete disdain for the United States Constitution. And I understand the arguments the Department of Justice was making today, and it is a real fringe legal theory that has not been supported by the Supreme Court and has not been supported by the whole host of research and academics around this. But they are following the president's directives to defend this order no matter what. And the fact that we have lawlessness coming from the top of the country, I think that is imbuing the rest of the federal government as well.
Do you have any concerns about finding yourself on Trump's hit list?
No, I didn't run for this office to hide away from challenges.
General, I asked you the last time around, this judge was a Reagan appointee. He talked about the rule of law being a bright beacon. What did you take from those comments and the fact, again, that he is a Reagan appointee who made this order?
Well, listen, my hope would be that any judge, regardless of which president appointed them or which party they were appointed by, would do what Judge Coughenour did today, which was say the rule of law matters. It does not matter who the president of the United States is, that in this country we are safeguarded by the constitutional principles we have and an adherence to the rule of law. And I saw when we brought the temporary restraining order a couple of weeks ago and President Trump dismissed it as just another Seattle judge, ignoring the fact that this is an esteemed jurist with almost 40 years on the bench, appointed by President Reagan, and has seen countless arguments made by parties. And so I think that should dissuade people from simply looking at the party next to the person that appointed that judge. But regardless, my hope would be any judge at the district court level, appellate court level, and the United States Supreme Court would do what Judge Coughenour did today.
In some of the judge's comments, he suggested that the government was playing policy games with the 14th Amendment. Can you address, from a policy standpoint, why should the U.S. recognize birthright citizenship for the children of people who are in the country illegally? I mean, some people might look at the case and say, well, look, if the parents, if two American citizens have a kid abroad, the kid's an American citizen. Why is the U.S. different? What is
I'll leave the policy arguments for others. I think what is important today was a recognition that what Judge Coughenour did today was simply reaffirm what has been the law of the land for 150 years. And we do have a process by which we amend the Constitution, and that is a policy discussion that the U.S. Congress and state legislatures would have to ratify. And if we want to make that policy change as a country, then we should go through that process and have a debate in this country and not simply have a purported king signing executive orders. Sorry.
Yeah, related to the question about Ellis, curious what your opinion is of their interpretation of jurisdiction and people having not full allegiance to the United States.
They're wrong.
But isn't it true that in Brown v. Board of Education and Reed versus Reed, in those cases, the courts changed the existing interpretation of the Constitution, and why can't that be done now?
Well, that's not the direction Judge Coughenour went today. Any last questions?
What does it say that you've been in court twice in the first 2 weeks of this administration?
It says we have a lawless president. I mean, time and time again, he's shown a disdain for the United States Constitution. I think the words from Judge Coughenour today were a reaffirmation from that. And that's just not my perspective. It's a Reagan-appointed judge showing the American people. And I think because of the barrage of lawlessness that we've seen in his first 2 weeks, we can get numb to that fact. But we cannot, and we must not, and this office will not. Thank you very much.